My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what I'm about to tell you, a truth that has eaten away at my soul for 4 decades. I served as a lieutenant in the Yamaguchi-gumi under Kazuo Taoka-san, the man the world believed ruled our organization with absolute authority. But I'm here to shatter that illusion. The rain was falling hard on Kobe that October night in 1975, when I first understood the true nature of power within our clan. I had been summoned to Taoka-san's compound in Nada. Ward, not the public office where he met with politicians and businessmen, but his private residence hidden behind high walls and ancient cherry trees. "Hiroshi," Taoka-san said, using my real name with the weariness of a man carrying invisible chains. "Sit down, we need to talk." I had been his trusted lieutenant for 7 years by then. I had killed for him, bled for him, built his empire street by street through Osaka's entertainment districts. But that night, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before: fear. "The newspapers call me the godfather of the Yakuza," he said, pouring sake with hands that trembled slightly. "They think I control everything from Kyushu to Tokyo, but you and I both know the truth is more complicated, don't we?" I remained silent. In our world, silence often meant survival. There are forces beyond what the public sees, Hiroshi. Men who never show their faces, but whose decisions shape everything we do. Tonight, you're going to meet one of them. The sliding door opened without a sound. A man entered, elderly, wearing a simple grey kimono, his presence filling the room despite his small stature. I had seen him before, always in the background during important meetings, never speaking, never acknowledged. Most of us assumed he was just another advisor, maybe a financial consultant. "This is Yamamoto-san," Taoka said, and I noticed he bowed deeper than I had ever seen him bow to anyone. "He has been guiding our organization since before the war." Yamamoto-san studied me with eyes like black steel. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, yet it commanded absolute attention. "Young man, you have served well, but your real service is about to begin. What you learn tonight will burden you for the rest of your life. Are you prepared for that weight?" I nodded, not understanding what I was agreeing to. "Good, because starting tomorrow, you will be my eyes and ears. Taoka-san is the face of our organization, yes, but every major decision, every territorial expansion, every alliance, every elimination, comes from a council that operates in complete shadow. We call ourselves the Invisible Hand." Over the following months, I learned the terrifying truth. The Yamaguchi-gumi, and indeed all the major Yakuza clans, were pieces on a board controlled by men who had never been photographed, never been named in any police report, never existed in any official capacity. These shadows had orchestrated the post-war reconstruction of Japan's underworld, managed conflicts between clans to maintain balance, and even influenced government policy through channels so deep they were invisible to everyone, including most Yakuza members themselves. Taoka-san was powerful, yes, but he was also a prisoner of a system far older and more complex than anyone imagined. Every morning he would receive a simple envelope with instructions written in classical Japanese calligraphy. No signature, no seal, just orders that he followed without question, because he understood the alternative. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked Yamamoto-san during one of our secret meetings in a tea house in Kyoto's Gion district. "Because Taoka-san is getting old, and the Americans are watching him too closely. We need someone younger, someone invisible, to handle certain delicate matters. You will be our blade in the darkness, Hiroshi, and in return, you will see how power really works in Japan." That night I stopped being just another Yakuza lieutenant. I became something much more dangerous and much more trapped. The first time I killed for the Invisible Hand, it wasn't a rival clan member or a police informant. It was one of our own, a high-ranking officer in the Yamaguchi-gumi who had started asking too many questions about where certain orders originated. His name was Watanabe, and he controlled the pachinko parlors in central Osaka. A good man by our standards, loyal, disciplined, never caused unnecessary trouble. But Watanabe had made the fatal mistake of tracing financial patterns, following money trails that led to places they weren't supposed to go. "He knows about the Korean connections," Yamamoto-san informed me during one of our midnight meetings. "And he's starting to understand how deep our influence goes into the government ministries. This cannot continue." I remember the weight of those words. In our world, we were used to violence. It was currency, language, law. But this felt different. This was killing to protect secrets that went far beyond clan rivalry or territorial disputes. Watanabe trusted me. When I invited him for drinks at a quiet bar in Sumiyoshi, he came without bodyguards, without suspicion. We talked about old times, about the code of honor that supposedly guided our lives. "Hiroshi," he said, his voice heavy with sake and something else, maybe premonition. "Do you ever feel like we're not really in control of our own organization anymore? Like we're just following scripts written by people we've never met?" I looked into his eyes that would be closed forever within the hour, and felt something die inside me. "What do you mean, Aniki? These new orders, the way territories are being divided, the strange alliances we're making with groups we used to consider enemies. It doesn't feel like Taoka-san's style. It feels like—" He paused, searching for words. "Like someone else is playing chess, and we're just the pieces." He was right, of course, but being right about the wrong things was a death sentence in our world. I excused myself to use the bathroom and made a phone call. 20 minutes later, Watanabe collapsed at our table, the victim of what would be reported as a heart attack. The poison, untraceable, fast-acting, had been provided by contacts I didn't want to know about. As I watched him die, Watanabe grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. Find the truth, Hiroshi. Don't let them turn you into—" He never finished the sentence. That night I understood the true nature of my prison. I wasn't just working for the invisible hand. I was becoming part of it, losing pieces of my humanity with each order I followed. But the deeper I went, the more I learned about the real structure of power in Japan's underworld. The invisible hand wasn't just a council of old men making decisions in dark rooms. It was a network that stretched back to the Meiji Restoration, with connections to Zaibatsu families, political dynasties, and even certain elements within the American occupation forces after the war. Yamamoto-san revealed this history to me piece by piece, like a master teaching a particularly dangerous art. "Do you know why the Americans allowed the Yakuza to reorganize after 1945? He asked during one of our sessions. "Because we served their interests. Communist influence was growing, labor unions were becoming militant, and they needed a way to maintain order without appearing to suppress democracy directly. The tea house around us was silent, except for the sound of rain on traditional roof tiles. These meetings always took place in places that felt frozen in time, as if the modern world couldn't touch the secrets we discussed. Certain members of our organization became assets. Not officially, you understand, but unofficially, we helped identify communist sympathizers, disrupted strikes that threatened American business interests, even eliminated problems that the official authorities couldn't touch. I felt sick understanding the implications. We were collaborators. We were survivors, Yamamoto-san corrected sharply, and survival required adaptation. The invisible hand emerged from that necessity, Japanese traditionalists working with pragmatic Americans to create a new kind of order. Taoka-san rose to power not just because of his strength or cunning, but because he was acceptable to both sides. This revelation changed everything I thought I knew about our organization. We weren't just criminals. We were part of a shadow government maintaining stability through carefully managed chaos. But every system has its weaknesses, and I was about to discover ours. By 1978, I had become Yamamoto-san's most trusted executor. I knew which politicians received our money, which police officials looked the other way during our operations, and which business leaders were secretly partners in ventures that would have destroyed their reputations if exposed. But knowledge, I learned, was a blade that cut both ways. The turning point came when I discovered the true identity of the Invisible Hand's leadership. It happened by accident, or perhaps it was orchestrated, a test I wasn't supposed to pass. I was delivering documents to a location in Tokyo's Akasaka district, a traditional building that housed what appeared to be a cultural foundation. As I waited in an antechamber, I heard voices from the adjacent room. Familiar voices, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Through a slight gap in the sliding door I saw them, 5 men seated around a low table, their faces illuminated by traditional lanterns. I recognized 2 immediately, high-ranking officials from the Liberal Democratic Party. men whose names appeared regularly in newspapers as champions of law and order. The others took me longer to place, but gradually I realized I was looking at some of Japan's most respected business leaders, including the head of one of the largest zaibatsu conglomerates. At the center of the group sat Yamamoto-san, but he looked different here. Not like the humble advisor I knew, but like a man accustomed to command. The Yamaguchi-gumi expansion into Tokyo must be carefully managed, one of the politicians was saying. Too aggressive and it will attract unwanted attention from the Americans. Too passive and the Sumiyoshi Kai will fill the vacuum. Taoka-san understands his role, Yamamoto-san replied. He will advance when we tell him to. Advance, retreat when retreat serves our larger purposes. The man has served well precisely because he knows his limitations. And what about the younger generation? The business leader asked. Some of them are asking uncomfortable questions about our methods. That problem is being addressed, Yamamoto-san said, and I felt a chill run through me. We have reliable people handling personnel issues. I realized with growing horror that I was one of those reliable people. Every elimination I had carried out, every problem I had solved, every secret I had protected, all of it had been in service of this shadow council that included some of Japan's most publicly respectable figures. But the worst revelation was still coming. The Americans are growing concerned about our relationship, the second politician said. Their new intelligence assessment suggests they may be reconsidering the arrangement. Then perhaps it's time to demonstrate our continued value, Yamamoto-san replied. I have a proposal that will prove our commitment to mutual interests. He reached into a folder and withdrew photographs, surveillance images that made my blood freeze. Pictures of Taoka-san meeting with journalists, pictures of him at locations he wasn't supposed to visit, pictures that could be interpreted as evidence of betrayal. Taoka-san has served his purpose, Yamamoto-san said calmly, but his prominence makes him vulnerable, and vulnerability is dangerous for everyone. It's time for transition. I understood immediately. They were planning to eliminate the man I had served faithfully for over a decade, the man the world saw as the most powerful Yakuza leader in Japan, and they were going to make it look like the result of clan warfare or personal rivalry. As I listened to them discuss the details, timing, methods, cover stories, I realized that I would probably be assigned to carry out the killing. After all, I was Yamamoto-san's trusted blade, and who better to eliminate? Taoka-san than someone he trusted completely. But something had changed in me during those years of service to the Invisible Hand. Maybe it was the accumulation of guilt from all the lives I had taken, or maybe it was finally understanding the true scope of the manipulation I had been part of. Whatever it was, I knew I couldn't follow this order. That night, I made the most dangerous decision of my life. I decided to warn Taoka-san, but as I would soon learn, the Invisible Hand had been several steps ahead of me all along. When I arrived at Taoka-san's compound that night, he was waiting for me in his garden, feeding the koi in his pond by moonlight. He didn't look surprised to see me, even though it was well past midnight, and I hadn't announced my visit. "Hiroshi," he said without turning around, "I was wondering when you would come." "Oyabun, I need to tell you something. Your life is in danger." He laughed, a sound I had rarely heard from him, and never with such bitterness. "My life has been in danger every day for 20 years. But you're not here to warn me about rival clans or ambitious subordinates, are you?" I felt the world shifting beneath my feet. "You know, about the Invisible Hand? About Yamamoto-san's real role? About your special assignments?" He finally turned to face me, and I saw the same weariness in his eyes that had been there the first night I learned about the Shadow Council. "Hiroshi, I've known about all of it from the beginning." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. "But why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because stopping it would have meant destroying everything we built together. And telling you, well, I tried to spare you the burden of that knowledge for as long as possible." He gestured for me to sit beside him on a stone bench. The night air was cool, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear the sound of traffic on the highways that connected Kobe to the rest of Japan, the modern world that seemed so far from the ancient codes and hidden powers that had shaped our lives. "Let me tell you the real story, Hiroshi, the story they never told you." Taoka-san's voice took on the cadence of a man unburdening himself of secrets carried too long. "When I was young and ambitious, I believed I was building my own empire. I thought the decisions were mine, the power was mine, the responsibility was mine. But gradually, I began to understand that I was part of something much larger, a system that had been in place long before I was born and would continue long after I was gone. He paused to throw more food to the koi, watching them surface in silent, desperate hunger. The invisible hand didn't choose me despite my independence. They chose me because of it. They needed someone who could genuinely believe in his own authority, someone who could command respect and loyalty while unknowingly serving their purposes. The most effective puppet is one who doesn't know the strings exist. But you did. No, I said. Eventually, yes, the same way you know now. The same way every man who rises high enough in this organization eventually knows. But by then, the choice isn't between freedom and slavery. It's between comfortable collaboration and certain destruction. He stood up and walked to the edge of the pond. In the moonlight, his reflection wavered on the water's surface. They've decided it's time for me to go, haven't they? I nodded, unable to speak. And they want you to do it. Another nod. Will you? The question hung in the air between us like a blade. I thought about all the orders I had followed, all the lives I had taken in service to masters I had never truly understood. I thought about Watanabe dying in that bar, about the politicians and businessmen casually discussing murder over tea, about the web of manipulation that had shaped every major decision in my adult life. No, I said finally. I won't. Taoka-san smiled, the first genuine smile I had seen from him in years. Good. I was hoping you'd say that. What happens now? Now, you disappear. Tonight. I have money for you, documents, contacts in places where the invisible hand's reach is limited. You take what I give you, and you vanish completely. What about you? Me? He laughed again, but this time with something that might have been relief. I'm an old man who's tired of pretending. Let them do what they're going to do. But first, I'm going to give them something they don't expect. 3 days. Later, Kazuo Taoka was found dead in his study, officially from a heart attack, though those of us who knew the truth understood it was something else entirely. But before he died, he had sent documents to journalists, prosecutors, and foreign intelligence services. Documents that revealed just enough about the invisible hand to make their continued existence impossible. The revelation didn't destroy them. Organizations like that don't die easily, but it forced them to retreat deeper into the shadows, to abandon certain operations, to sacrifice some of their most visible assets. The balance of power shifted, new players emerged, and the old certainties crumbled. As for me, I kept my promise to disappear. For 40 years I've lived under different names in different countries, carrying the weight of everything I learned and everything I did. But now I'm old, and the men I served and feared are mostly dead, and I find that silence has become a heavier burden than the truth. This is my confession. Not to clear my conscience, because some stains can never be washed clean, but to leave a record, to ensure that someone knows how power really worked in those hidden years, and how easily good men can become instruments of systems they never fully understand. The Yakuza still exists, of course. New leaders have risen, new alliances have formed, new shadows have learned to manipulate new puppets. But maybe, if people understand how the strings work, they'll be harder to pull. Maybe. That's naive. Maybe the hunger for power and the willingness to serve it are too deeply embedded in human nature to ever truly change. But I had to try. I owed Taoka-san that much. I owed Watanabe that much. I owed myself that much. This narrative is a work of fiction inspired by the complex history of organized crime in post-war Japan. While based on real historical contexts and actual figures like Kazuo Taoka, the specific events and characters described are fictional. The story aims to explore themes of power, manipulation, loyalty, and the moral compromises individuals make when caught between competing loyalties and hidden systems of control.